All right. Good morning to all of you who currently attend this particular session. Uh, as per the academic requirements, this session, which is on every working Saturday during the first slot, as per the timetable, is exclusively identified for discussions related to this course. So, over the course of the 3 regular sessions over the weekdays, if there has been any accumulation of queries related to what had been instructed over these 3 separate hours every week, clarifications on those can certainly be posted during this time. Okay, and they can certainly get a due attention. In order to add enhanced value to this session, certain additional activities can also be done. Okay, so what typically is planned is you could, for example, attend a quiz session during a small amount of this particular time, and the answers to the quiz sessions questions will be actually discussed here. Okay, after the duration of the quiz is run out. So that is one activity. The other one is we may also cover a certain amount of the backlog, which potentially has cropped up over the course of the week on account of various reasons for delays, which may also include a holiday or a lack of ability to either attend or to provide instructions. Okay, either way, if there is any potential backlog, a small part of it can certainly be covered during this time. And always there is going to be an exclusive large amount of time reserved for the discussions related to what had all transpired over the particular week. Okay, right. So to start off, let's bring back the specific slide with which the previous session was stopped. Okay, so that is the one that tries to connect the practical world and the varying parameters that need to be sensed out of this real world scenario. I gave you examples of parameters such as the temperature of the atmosphere, the air pressure, density, the speed at which the air moves past the aircraft, and every one of this is having a crucial requirement to be constantly monitored. Okay, and at times extremely faster, which means the sensors that have to be deployed on board aircrafts need to provide data at much higher rates. Okay, like for every second you'll need to get so many numbers of data points. Okay, and because sensors are mostly analog types, they have absolutely no issues in terms of providing the data. It is only at the level where the acquisition of the information is concerned, we'll have potential issues in terms of how many data points can be acquired. So that is the reason the plot on the right hand side is shown as a continuously varying plot. Okay, so you have an infinite possibility in terms of the breaking down into finer time parameters. So you can have it at the level of 1 second, a data point, which is the value of the parameter plotted on the y-axis as a function of time. You can go to fractions of the second, which may be a millionth or a billionth as the situation demands. Okay, so for example, if you say have a requirement to monitor a specific parameter such as the wind velocity moving past the aircraft, a very crucial element, because that in turn decides how much the aircraft will suffer in terms of lift. Okay, so if the velocity is low, the actual speed of travel of the aircraft is also likely to be low. And there are various types of velocities. Okay, some components offered by the wind flow, the others on account of the movement of the aircraft itself. So there is a resultant higher magnitude of wind velocity that moves past the aircraft, especially in the context of the control surfaces. Okay, and we had seen plenty of them in one of the earlier discussions. So these control surfaces need to offer varying degrees of cross section to the incoming airstrip in order to realize varying maneuvers of the aircraft, such as lift, descent, the banking or the turning maneuver, and potentially losing altitude abruptly if there is a requirement such as a rapid decompression that happens within the cabin, all of these scenarios need to be assisted in terms of the intentions of the pilot, ably supported by specific controls which are realized on the aircraft system. Okay, so in this regard, quite a lot of parameters need to be constantly monitored, and each of them provides a certain information which is plotted on the y-axis with time. Okay, and depending on the context of the particular parameter that is being monitored, you have varying intervals of time and varying finer aspects within that particular interval over which the information needs to be accurate. And mind you, while the aircraft is in air is the substantial element which needs to be monitored. Okay, if the vehicle is road going one, you have possibilities to monitor aspects connected with the terrain. Okay, such as how fast the wheels are spinning, what is the condition of the road over which the vehicle travels, and so on. But while it is the case of a three-dimensional mobility, such as associated with aircraft systems, everything to do with the atmosphere becomes paramount. And significant inputs need to be derived from the atmosphere in order to calibrate carefully the actual performance characteristics of the flying platform. Okay, so that is all on the right-hand side in terms of the real-world characteristics. If many such types of data need to be simultaneously processed, it reaches a point where locating multitudes of monitoring devices such as dials, analog display components, and so on will be impossible beyond a certain number of parameters that require monitoring. Okay, additionally, there is always the likelihood that the human being who is going to be closely watching all of the performance parameters from the external locations beyond the actual boundaries of the aircraft will miss a few of them. Okay, so there is a chance some of them are going unmonitored. So in order to avoid such eventualities, what is done is all of this data is digitized and processed by a computer. So that is the scheme that you see on the left-hand side here. So when it comes to computational processing, evidently there is the requirement to convert it into a digital form because most computers work on the digital side of things. So digital computing identifies a certain pattern for the information. So you'll need the primary data component, which here is denoted by a 16-bit word. You have no restriction in terms of defining it as 16 bits. Okay, it depends on the accuracy. And that accuracy in the definition of the original real-world data when converted into a digital form is in turn going to decide the numbers of bits per word. Okay, so if you want the analog information to be represented in terms of 8 bits, 16 bits, 32 bits, or any other higher configuration, as the numbers of bits increases, you are getting as close to the original analog data type. Okay, so because it becomes finer in terms of the sampled time interval over which data is obtained. If you are going to get only 4 bits to represent every data point, that shows it is a very coarse information or a very first order crude level of estimating the information. There is a chance that in between two such data points in the analog world, there is a very crucial bit of information which is likely to be lost if your data word is not very high definition. Okay, so 16-bit and the addressing scheme for that particular data where this particular information of the data type has to eventually deposit itself in memory of various types in a typical computing scenario. Okay, this include processor side memories, exclusive memories used for storage of intermediate results of processing associated with varying algorithms that handle this data. In this respect, temperature data requires a type of algorithm to be implemented which will process this information. Density data or pressure data requires a different kind of algorithm to work on such a data. Okay, so the data may be all of a digitized discrete type, but the algorithm that processes it is going to be different in each case. So intermediate results of such processing are stored, and in every instance you will need a accompanying address parameter. Okay, and on top of that you also will have abilities to distinguish between the data types. Mostly these are at the starting point of the particular type of data, and towards the end of each data packet, which is a set of words of either 8 or 16-bit type, towards the end of that you will have the integrity estimation bits. Okay, this could be in the form of cyclic redundancy checking bits, and bits that look out for parity in order to check if the original information and the one that has been received or processed has got any variability or are they identical. So those possibilities of checking are also included in every such word. Okay, and a collection of words together constitutes what is called as a data packet, and several such words result in what is called as a digital message. Okay, a message is made out of several words which have a small separation between adjacent ones. So that is the digital world. In order to visualize the outcome of the processing done by varying types of algorithms, you'll again have to convert it back into analog, also called as baseband, because analog signals cannot work at extremely high frequencies. Okay, so that's the reason you'll need to bring it back into a form where it can be confidently displayed using varieties of display devices, starting with the very first order oscilloscope types, going into much more sophisticated ones which can do imaging, such as the liquid crystal displays or a light emitting diode matrix array configurations, which may either be passive or maybe a two-way type, okay, which means that they can support tactile sensory features such as touch screen display types, okay, multifunction displays and plasma displays. There are so many technologies associated with the display variety. So those are all lying on the analog side, and you will need to use the corresponding digital to analog converters to achieve that outcome. Okay. On the bottom right hand side, there is a mention of the concept of the hybrid ICs, okay, or the so-called multi-chip modules. So I did mention a little bit about it. So we'll look at it in some detail now. So multi-chip modules, they are primarily packaged into a form that assumes an important facet in modern electronic miniaturization and microelectronic systems. So the MCM, also called as the hybrid IC, is primarily designed in order to accommodate multiple integrated circuits, and they can be deployed on board the aircraft system in the avionics bay, which is where you notice all of the electronics and supporting software implementations residing within an aircraft. Okay, so there is an exclusive space called the avionics bay. And the front end of that is the typical cockpit, where the pilot and various other engineers can monitor the performance of the aircraft and the various systems that support the aircraft while it is in flight. Okay, so these ICs, which are packaged into a single substrate, constituting what is called as a hybrid IC, along with various passive components such as capacitors, resistors, inductors, and so on, constitutes the single packaging scheme, which affords enhanced SWaP-C benefits. And I told you what SWaP-C is, okay, size, weight, power, and cost benefits. These are crucial elements which are going to decide whether a particular technology can find a utilization on board an aircraft, or should it be not favored when compared to another technology which provides significant SWaP-C benefits. So that decision is taken based on a primary component of advantage called the SWaP-C criterion. Okay, so what are the benefits of the hybrid ICs or the multi-chip modules? First thing is they lower the power supply requirements because of the shorter spans of travel that the signals need to take between adjacent modules that are used for processing. So if you have multiple ICs which are all residing nearby and are able to process the information without too much of a loss attributed due to transmission of signals between one and the other IC, evidently the power requirements can also be reduced. Okay, so that is one aspect where interconnects are reduced in terms of their length between adjacent processing modules. They offer a smaller overall packaging dimension, and this in turn translates into a higher degree of miniaturization. So you can have a compact representation of the electronic system on board the aircraft. It wouldn't take too much space. Okay, there is a greater level of reliability and a decreased number of interconnects between components, and there is also the flexibility as an outcome of the integration of different kinds of technologies that have a chance to now be brought into a single substrate. So you can have, For example, in a particular region of geography, a specific vendor for that product, if there is a uniform standard that is implemented across a global avionics system implementation, depending on where the aircraft lands in a different part of the world, you have still a vendor who can provide the suitable replacement part for it. So that's the flexibility associated with the use of differing semiconductor technologies for all following a unified standard. So there is a very rapid time to market aspect, which means the duration of time that is involved with developing the product can be significantly reduced on account of this. So the life cycle aspect of a particular product is significantly shortened, and it can get into the market faster, considering the rapidity with which technology is evolving. And as I mentioned in an earlier session, intraday upgrades are typically what one notices in aircraft technologies. Okay, so in the starting point of a particular day, you have a Japanese vendor introducing a technology. By the end of the day, there is a vendor on the other side of the world in the United States who can propose an advancement to that technology. Okay, these are effectively realized in a significant aspect on the software side. Okay, so which means time to market for the particular solution is very crucial here, so that one can turn the product into a corresponding economic benefit. Okay, simplification of the complexity by putting several devices into a single packaging scheme, which are functionally defined, so that in scenarios that involve maintenance, upgrades, troubleshooting, it becomes an easier proposition to handle such kinds of hardware which are already existing in the form of hybrid ICs. Okay, and evidently with the volumes that are going to be generated in terms of the product fabrication, you have a lowering of the cost also to be expected. Okay. Right, so let's look at some of the applications of hybrid ICs or the multi-chip modules. They are used extensively in the radio frequency wireless modules, which are used in communication, radar systems, sensing purposes, weather monitoring, and so on. In every place where there is a high frequency signal utilized, which typically has a frequency range from 300 megahertz to 300 gigahertz, you have MCMs actively getting involved. So in such context, you have a redefinition of their role into what is known as RFICs. Okay, then you have power amplifiers, communication devices that use high power amplification schemes, high density single module computers. Examples of them, maybe I should ask some among you here. Okay, Janisha, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Janisha, can you give an example of a single board computer that you are familiar with? This is not an evaluation, so you can be a little more
Yes, I'm thinking, sir.
freer about it. Okay. I just am wanting to know if you have some understanding about what constitutes a single board computer. Okay, let me ask somebody else. Dana Karthik, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dana Karthik, you being from CCE, you should be able to answer this. What's a single board computer? Give an example, please.
Sir, studied it. I think it comes under Raspberry Pi. That's
exactly. I mean, you are precisely on the point. Okay, Raspberry Pi is an example. So everything accommodated within a single board. Okay, that is a typical example of computation implemented in the form of a hybrid IC. All right. So you have many more examples of that, including some versions of Arduino,
Arduinos.
Yeah, Jetson Nano, Intel, NUC, all of these are typical examples.
Magic 8, etc.
Exactly. So you have your own preferences there. So I mean, effectively, all of this constitutes the case for the single board computers. Okay. So a typical practical application of the hybrid IC is what you see here, and this can indeed be tailored for avionics purposes as well. Okay, in a more acceptable form that can go into aircraft systems, which means they'll need to be ruggedized, considering that aircraft scenarios are likely to be the most harshest in terms of parameters such as temperature variability, because on the ground you may have a certain temperature, while the aircraft is airborne, easily about minus 50 degrees centigrade can be attained. So the electronics needs to support that kind of variation over a short time frame within which the aircraft has climbed to a certain altitude. Okay, pressure variations are one more thing, and we'll be looking at some of the environmental concerns as well, okay, in one of the following slides. So then massive computation that can be provided in the form of these servers, use of portable electronics, wearable computers is one more aspect, wherein you have computation which has been carried on board the person who actually needs to operate the aircraft system. Okay, so that's again a more recent advent in terms of the computational abilities that have been offered on account of the miniaturization schemes. Then evidently its application in military and space avionics sector. Okay, that is a direct benefit obtained out of incorporating significant design solutions incorporating the concept of the hybrid ICs. Okay, so coming back to this discussion, the development of a wholly digital control system has managed to accommodate interfaces with the real world. And the real world is evidently of an analog type. The range of microelectronic devices that is used in different applications within a digital system are likely to be different depending on the nature of the signal and parameter that is being monitored. Okay, and pretty much all of the parameters of the atmosphere require a constant monitoring. Hybrid chips and input-output application-specific ICs are key technologies associated with interfacing to the analog world. Okay, so you have ASICs which can offer an ability to transform the analog signal into the digital kind. So you have the ADCs as one of the instances of that, and you have varying technologies that are applied to ADCs as well. Okay, then you have processors which can be implemented in a dedicated manner for the purpose of handling some of these parameters as well. Okay, like radar processors, weather monitoring schemes that use applications such as laser beams, LiDAR systems, altitude monitoring using radio frequency signals that tend to maintain a steady separation vertically with reference to features on the ground, okay, such as mountainous features, oceans, and so on. So what typical separation needs to be constantly maintained so that the aircraft does not crash into the terrain features. So that is again requiring a different kind of algorithm which can be set apart in a dedicated integrated chip, okay, called the application specific IC. So ADCs and DACs are primarily meant to enable a conversion from one to the other side, okay, and the corresponding signal types which need to go into each of this. And the last one, processors and memory devices, this together with the digital ASICs will perform digital processing tasks associated with the application. Arvind, can you hear me? Arvind?
Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning. So can you tell me, I mean, have you had a session on VLSI so far in your course?
No, sir.
Not yet, okay. So everything is likely to be new in such a case. Have you got any independent knowledge about what a concept of VLSI is? I mean, through studying literature which is available in the public domain online and so on, because you are likely to have a few courses related to that as well.
Sir, As far as I know, it's like which is related to IC, sir.
Okay, so nothing substantial in terms of course related activity which you have pursued related to this. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what had been the courses in the previous semester? I'll ask someone else about that. Aishwarya, can you hear me? Aishwarya, are you there? Can you hear me? Roll number 103. Okay, Akash, CCE.
Sir, yes, sir.
Yes, good morning, Akash. What sort of bunch of courses did you have during your immediate past semester? Just to get a knowledge of what you had been exposed to.
Sir, machine learning, sir.
Right, okay.
MRSP, sir.
All right.
Embedded, sir.
So you had embedded systems, okay.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
So was it more software inclined, which is what I suspect it would be, more than electronics based, yeah? Okay. And then?
So then analog communications, sir.
Analog communications. All right. Okay. Right. So there is a huge leap that needs to be made in terms of your level of understanding of what we are likely to discuss here, because it is going to be a very equal mix of electronics and a certain degree of software that is going to drive this electronics. Okay. So that will be part of this course. All right. So Divya, who is roll number 17, CCE. Divya.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning, Divya. So what is the understanding you have about ASICs or VLSI for that matter? Have you read about it separately anywhere from where you can possibly give some answers?
No, sir.
You don't know?
We know ICs
Right, okay.
and VLSI could be
What
worked
is
with
the
FPGA.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
But it's just a conceptual, sir. We haven't worked with it.
Fine. So I see the idea. Right. So what is the computing platform you currently make use of?
It's just old ones. We use Scale MDK for embedded computing.
Right now, when you are attending this MS Teams session, you certainly have a computing platform. What sort of a processor goes into it? Do you have some idea about that?
I'm using an Intel.
Intel, okay. Intel what?
Intel i7 quad processor.
i7, okay. So i7. All right. So i7 has got a certain standard in terms of VLSI implementation. Okay. So it is somewhere in the range of about up to 5 nanometers, which means the dimensions of the logic devices, okay, which could be either used for memory or for the purpose of computation. So if it is memory devices, you have aspects of buffers, flip-flops, and so on. If it is for the purpose of computation, you have evidently logic gates, which are implemented in various types, okay. Immaterial of the kind, the actual dimensions of these transistors or the so-called logic devices is getting up to about 5 nanometers, which is a very, very small dimension. And the transmission pathways or the actual tracks over which signals have to be flowing from one to the next logic gate is also of a comparable dimension. Okay. So this is called as the track and the space. Okay. So you cannot have closely packed tracks because that will mean there is a significant interference with the adjacent information flow pathway. So you'll need to maintain a certain separation between the adjacent tracks, what you see in a typical PCB. Okay, so if you open up some of the electronic devices and take a look at them, you will notice that the printed circuit board has on one side lots of pathways through which signal flows have been identified from one to a different component. Okay, so these are by and large enormous sized circuits compared to what you notice within a processor, such as within an Intel i7. Okay, so all the same, the actual concept of realization of connectivity, or the so-called interconnectivity, remains identical in both cases. So the dimensions of these devices and the interconnectivity solutions all reduce as the packing factor increases and the technology progresses further. So that's the reason why there is the ability in recent times to accommodate more than billion such devices within a particular square area, which could be a square inch or a square centimeter. And in addition to that, you also have the possibility to vertically stack, okay, which means you can have dual core, octa core, quad core, and so on. Okay, so which means 8 separate layers of 2-dimensional chips in an octa-core configuration. Okay, that is in effect what constitutes the so-called i7, i9, and even the i10, which is now being proposed, where the standards are going to get even more refined, reaching somewhere like sub 2 nanometers, which means even below 2 nanometers in terms of the sizes. So one is all the while pressing against the laws of physics, and the Moore's law is getting even more enhanced currency in terms of its application. Okay, so beyond a point, there is the evident possibility that you cannot accommodate any more logic devices or transistors within a particular area. So it will reach its very limit. Okay, so that's the understanding of how miniaturization is progressing. So when it comes to dimensions of these logic gates, which are in the order of nanometers, okay, that is effectively when you have the concept of the VLSI, okay, very large scale integration, which means you are going to connect modules which are meant to do varying applications, which are likely to run different kinds of embedded software code, and put them all on a single die or on a single substrate. Okay, so that has the functional realization in the form of a computing architecture meant for processing purposes. So this just to give you an idea of what is expected out of an ASIC or a VLSI scheme. And FPGAs are more mechanical and functional reconfigurable circuit elements, which can even while not being mechanically reconfigurable, have the ability to perform different roles depending on the nature of change to the connectivity that can be enabled. Okay, so you can have certain a bunch of transistors performing a specific functionality. They can be reconfigured by changing the connectivity in a manner where a different functionality can also be realized. So it's like multiple ASICs which are assembled into a single electronic circuit system called as the field programmable gate arrays, FPGAs. Okay. All right, so let me ask anyone else here. Hem version, can you hear me? Hem version. Roll number 15 ACE.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Hem version. Have you had a course on microprocessors and microcontrollers?
Not before now, sir. This is the first time.
Okay, so that is again one more big gap in knowledge which you will currently be having, because if you look at the word that is defined in this particular slide, for every type of microcontroller and microprocessor, you have a certain configuration of the word. Okay, so a data word can be 16 bits for something like a Motorola or a Texas Instruments or a Toshiba microcontroller, and it may be a larger configuration of 32 and 64 bits for a same manufacturer developing a more recent solution of the microcontroller. Okay, so an example again you can take from AMD and the Intel's microprocessors, which now work on a 64-bit standard, which means simultaneously it can draw in 64 discrete binary information schemes and process it in a place where originally earlier generations of microcontrollers or microprocessors could handle 4, 8, or 16 bits. You can have simultaneously 64 bits. Okay, so that enhances the throughput of information and the processing ability, as well as the time taken to complete the processing. Okay, so if you have more bits which are drawn into the processing architecture, the time taken to actually analyze the information coming from a certain volume of data from the external world that has been digitized is also reduced. Okay, so because you are input taking as an input greater volumes of the information, and that reduces the time span. Harismrita, Harismitra. Yeah, I mean, I hope I am pronouncing your name right.
Yes.
So number 145. Do you have any specific observations related to the discussions we have had over this 2 to 3 classes? Any clarifications that you would be requiring?
No, sir. It's clear, sir.
All right. So considering the fact that many of the topics that we have not even had a chance to be taken up in a mainstream coursework activity so far. All right. Sudiksha, roll number 254. Sudiksha, can you hear me? Okay, Vishnu Shankar, 259, can you hear me? Vishnu Shankar?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Vishnu Shankar.
Good morning, sir.
Do you have any queries or clarifications that you would like to ask during this time? Because this is a discussion hour, and anything which has been left unclear so far, you could ask about those now.
No, sir.
Everything is all right for you. Okay.
Everything is all right. Yes, sir.
All right. So hopefully you have a chance to get hold of reference documents, reference material which have been identified. Vishnu Shankar, do you have any chance to get hold of any of the reference textbooks or material so far?
No, sir. I haven't started it, sir.
So I would strongly suggest everybody to look around, because
Yes,
in the ideal case, all of this, or at least most of these reference textbooks, and that's primarily why they are all identified as reference textbooks, would be in the library, okay, in its hard copy version. So in the current circumstances, with that access denied, you may have to find equivalent literature in the public domain, which is online. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Nigel, who is 136 roll number.
Yes, sir.
Nigel, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
How has your understanding about this course been so far?
I'm able to understand so far, sir. No problem.
Okay. So have you been able to acquire any of the textbooks and reference material?
I was able to acquire some 5 books also.
All right. Hopefully you can identify some of the discussions we are having right now, even in those.
Yes, sir.
At least somewhere or the other, because no two avionics textbooks are identical. Okay. So that's something which I have to tell you. It is not like the other courses. All right. And what is best in terms of an academic program, which has to offer a reasonable coverage over quite a lot of concepts in avionics systems, is exactly how this particular course has been designed. Okay, which means it will borrow information from several reference material in order to put together a more comprehensive picture of the concept of aviation electronics.
Yes, sir.
Adi Selvi, roll number 32 CCE.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Adi Selvi, do you have any queries or clarifications related to what we have been discussing?
No, sir. No, sir. It's fine, sir.
It's going all right for you? Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Sir, but I have one query, sir. Like, is the discussion hour mandatory for everyone to attend, sir? Like,
it is, yeah. Okay. Because this is exclusively reserved to take into account the possible uncertainties in the course of 3 to 4 lecture hours on a weekly basis, over which you may have missed out on certain concepts which you will want to again project on the MS Teams session. so that you get a clarity on it. Okay.
Yes.
So that's not telling that everybody has got a perfect internet connectivity. There are times during which either I or the side of you and every student for that matter has got a disconnection. Okay. So during that time, there is a possibility 1 or 2 slides have been skipped or some crucial discussion was missed out. So in order to get a clarity there, you will be requiring to attend this discussion session to clarify any potential doubts.
Okay, sir.
Right. So, yeah. Jagan, roll number 124 ECE. Jagan, can you hear me? All right. Let me ask roll number 24 CCE, Pranit. Pranit, are you able to hear me? Pranit.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Morning. Pranit, do you have any queries or clarifications about the course that we have been going around with? Okay. So every concept discussed so far is clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I have to ask you, what is the role of an ASIC? Would you be able to answer that? Pranit, a question for you. Okay, because you say you have no queries. Would you be able to explain what an ASIC is, application specific IC? What is its role, purpose, and so on? All right, so I remember mentioning this just a few minutes away from what we are speaking now, a little before. Okay, so depending on the nature of the parameter that is being monitored in the real world and the type of signal conditioning or signal handling that has to be performed on the computational side, you have a dedicated processing scheme that is identified, which also helps with the purpose of troubleshooting, maintenance, and upgrades. Okay, so you have a dedicated integrated chip that will do this work. So an ASIC is identified as a component in electronic systems, which is meant to do a particular activity. Okay, so it is application specific. It can do either conversion from analog to digital types. It can either provide a certain degree of conversion of a streaming serial data into a form which is parallelized. Okay, so that in terms of volume handling, you have a simultaneous presence of 16 or 32 or 64 bits. This can be obtained as an outcome of the conversion. You can do coding and decoding, encryption and decryption, all of these aspects. Okay, signal parameters can be modulated in a manner where they are suitable for transmission. In every one of these cases, there is a dedicated integrated chip or a smart solution that is identified in electronics components called the application specific IC. It will do only that one task. Okay, that's the purpose of the ASIC. Supradeep, can you hear me? Supradeep, CCE 16, roll number 16. All right, roll number 5, CCE. Raghavendra, good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
So Raghavendra, do you have any clarifications or queries about the discussions on this course so far?
Sir, no, sir. No problem, sir.
Things are reasonably clear to you. Did you have a chance to get some of the reference textbooks or material for consulting on what we have been discussing so far?
So I have not taken, still I have not.
Please give a try online.
Yes, sir.
If you find any of your batchmates having a copy of any of these documents, try to get hold of it as well. Okay.
Yes,
I strongly urge you work as a team in order to find some of the resource material for this. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
I know who's speaking. Yeah. Yeah, may I know who's speaking?
Sir, Supradeep, sir, you called me, na, sir.
Oh, yeah. Supradeep, good morning.
Sir, no, sir. It was some network issue, sir. I am speaking, sir. Now only it is audible for you, sir.
All right. I can hear you. Good morning. Supradeep, can you hear me now?
Sir, yes, sir.
Okay. Supradeep, do you have any queries or clarifications about what we have been discussing so far?
Sir, no, sir.
Are various concepts clear as of now?
Yes, sir, okay, sir.
All right. Please make an effort to get hold of the reference textbooks and reference material connected with what we have been discussing, so that you have a chance to have an offline acquisition of further knowledge on this. Okay. All right. So if there aren't any other queries and clarifications from your side, we can conclude today's session.
No, sir. No,
All
sir.
right.
No, sir.
All right. Yeah, I have your inputs. Thank you. So we'll conclude today's session with discussions on the evolving nature of electronics, and we'll proceed with a few more topics related to this in the next session of this course, okay, which will be during the following week. Today's session ends right here.